Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cool Sports Network. I am your host, Chase Coburn, and today I am joined by a very special guest, a forward for the Fairfield Stags men's basketball team, Lou Bleechmore. Lou, thanks so much for coming on and welcome to
No,
the show.
no worries, Chase. It's my pleasure to be here, man.
Well, I'm so glad you are able to come on. So, to start off the show, I think it's right. When did you realize you wanted and had the talent to be a basketball player? And then what did you do to kind of pursue that passion and make it a reality?
Yeah, so growing up in Australia, I always played basketball from a young age.
Yep.
But in terms of my hobbies and interests, it was always kind of on the back burner. I kind of let a lot of other things take my top priority spot, and then I kind of realized around seventh, eighth grade, like I think basketball is the way to go. And so I would just start practicing a lot. I would go down to the courts every weekend, any chance I got, really, and would just spend all day there with either with some friends or by myself, just working on my game and trying to get better.
Yeah, I feel like you hear that a lot. Once you really find a passion, you just continue to practice it day in and day out and
Yes,
get
sir.
very good at it. And that,
Hmm.
that I think that showed definitely in your case. So, previously we had Taj Benning on the show, who is
Hmm.
who used to be a guard for the Stags, and now he is a guard for the Coburn Cougars of the NBL in Australia. And something that he said about playing in Australia is that the players there, they're not as like ball heavy, dribblish, one-on-one dominant type players
Mm.
compared to the US. So considering you did, as you mentioned, grew up in Sydney, Australia, would you say you kind of realized that too? And if not, what would you say is the biggest difference between playing ball in Australia compared to the US?
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree with his point. Some of the biggest differences are, I guess you could say almost every aspect of the game. The physicality is different. Like you said, the dribbling and the isolation and the one-on-one scoring is very different. We don't really do that in Australia. There will be certain people who are good enough, but it's a team-oriented sport. So Australia really do a good job of embodying that, and any at any kind of level, that's how you're taught. Team first. So. Um, yeah, a lot of ball movement, a lot of unselfishness. But yeah, it's a very different game over here than it is back home for sure.
I think you see that a lot too. Like if you watched, I didn't watch much, but like if you watched a little bit of the FIBA World Cup for basketball this summer,
Mhm,
or like if you watch the Olympics, you see these other countries like Australia. It's much more like team oriented. You're exactly
mhm,
right than like the US, and it's interesting, kind of the difference there. So you moved from Australia to America in 2017.
mhm.
What would you say were your biggest challenges on the court and off the court, transitioning and moving to a new country?
Yeah, so on the court, biggest challenges was I wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
I had been lifting on my own when I was at home, but I wasn't used to like a proper weight training program. So I wasn't big enough. I wasn't strong enough. I had a little bit of athleticism at the time, nothing like I do now. And I can credit that to the training system and the training programs that I had in prep school. Um, but yeah, off the court, it was hard, man. Being away from family, being away from friends, and kind of just being isolated. It does take a toll on you, and obviously, it's time that you can't get back. So I just, every day I get in the gym, I try and go as hard as I can because, that's why I'm here, away from my family, away from my friends,
Right.
pursuing my passion. So, um, it would almost be disrespectful to them if I stepped out on the court one day and just went half speed and didn't give my full effort. So,
Right.
yeah, being away from family is definitely probably the toughest thing off the court.
So you say it essentially like motivates you on the court.
Yeah, yeah, it motivates me. It's all subconscious as well. Like obviously I'm not in a game, thinking about, oh man, I haven't seen my family in a while, but subconsciously like it's a driving factor. I don't
Right.
need to think about it for it to be on my mind. Um and it gets me going when I need to.
Absolutely. So while the transition I'm about to talk about probably wasn't as tough, like your teammate Jasper Floyd, who was previously on the show, you've
Mm,
now transferred 3 times in
mhm.
your collegiate basketball career. What would you say have been the toughest challenges that you've seen transferring from school to school?
Yeah. So obviously my first transfer was from Harcum uh, Junior College to St. Joe's last year, and then from St. Joe's to here. I'd say the toughest thing is just kind of like finding a home. Obviously, as we spoke about, I'm not from here, so
Right,
it's nice when you find somewhere that feels like home and you can kind of not get comfortable. Well, yeah, get comfortable within a sense. Not complacent, but comfortable.
right,
Um, and that's the toughest part is, and that comes from multiple aspects. It comes from the community around you, comes from the area you're in, comes from the people you go to school with, your teachers, your coaches, your teammates, everybody. um, and I guess I found that more here than I have in the past, which is why I think I'm enjoying it a lot more here. And it's a lot easier on a day-to-day basis. I've had a in my past, I've had a bit of struggles, so I found a good spot in Fairfield, and I'm liking it.
I'm glad to hear that. What initially did you like at Fairfield that made you transfer here for your senior season?
Yeah, it was mainly the opportunity presented to me when I was talking to Coach Young. Once I put my name in the portal, he's familiar with my game. He tried to recruit me out of junior college, but I was already down the line with St. Joe's, and one of the former players here, Chris Mido, was actually me and him went to prep school together. So
That's cool.
I have a feeling Coach Young and his staff probably saw me at some point in prep school as well. So he was
Yeah,
very familiar with my game and he knew what I could bring to the table. And, he essentially said, look, like we need you to have a valuable, impactful role here and we need you to be a leader as well. And,
right,
ultimately that's, why I play the sport. Like I don't play the sport for the stats or the numbers or anything. Like I play to be a positive role model and a positive leader on the floor,
right.
and through that helping my team win. To me, there's nothing better.
Yeah, that's awesome because you don't hear that in a lot of players these days, that really, value that leadership and winning more than
Mm.
statistics. You can look at all these different sports. That's obviously great to hear. But on the court, you obviously have your fair share of talents. What would you say is your biggest strength?
Ooh, my biggest strength. I'd say my dunking ability and my 3-point shooting are like 1A and 1B.
Yeah,
I do love to dunk. I do love you throw me a lob, I'll go get it. If I
yeah,
see a lane, I'm gonna go punch it. But also, if I see an open shot, I'm shooting it. If you give me a second, if you give me an inch, I'm letting it go. So
right.
1A and 1B.
Yep, and Coach Young, something that he did mention, I remember, and he said it in a press conference. He wrote in an article as well for Fairfield's website, and he was saying that when you came in, how you were going to add a lot of stretch, you're going to stretch the floor and add a lot of those abilities with your shot and
Hmm.
inside the paint. So it's funny that you said those two things, but
Yeah.
obviously we were talking about it off camera. It's October. I mean, the season is a month away. The summer
Hmm.
just flew by completely. Um, so what would you say like practice is like? Because obviously I feel like practice in August would be different than practice in early November. So explain to me kind of
Yeah.
what practice is like and how it changes as you get closer to the season.
Yeah. So, early on when we're months away, it's typically lighter. I'm not saying it's light or it's easy, but it's light. It's on the lighter side. We'll get a lot of shots up.
Right.
We'll walk through a lot of the offense or what kind of plays you want to run. And then as we pick it up coming into a month away or a few weeks away, we'll start to ramp it up a bit. We'll play a lot more. We'll get up and down. We'll run up and down. The intensity just gets turned up. It gets turned up a little more.
Right.
um, and everybody's just bringing that energy and pushing each other because we know that we can be very good, and it's all about us pushing ourselves to get there because no one else can do it but us. So
Right.
kind of just turning that the volume up, essentially turning the volume up and really amping things up.
So obviously practice is one of the main things that a basketball player does, but there's also so much that goes into being a basketball player. So explain to me, what is a day in the life of a Division 1 basketball player at Fairfield University?
Okay, so wake up. Well, practice is at about 9 o'clock. So I typically wake up an hour, maybe an hour and some change beforehand. Make sure I'm eating some good breakfast, and then I'll head to the gym and warm up. And then practice, we usually go from 9 to 11:30, 12. And then once practice finishes, we lift from 12 to 1. And then everybody's schedule is different, but we'll typically have class in the afternoon. I know some days I've got a 2 o'clock class and a 5 o'clock class. On Tuesdays I have a 6:30 to 9 o'clock class. So it just depends on your schedule, but that's pretty much like the gist of a day in the life. And then obviously you'll go into the training room if you're feeling a bit banged up or something.
Right.
If you need to take care of something, you'll go see the trainers.
So when we had Jasper on, we were mentioning kind of like how it's hard to balance education and then also sports at the same time. And it's
Mm,
funny. Personally, I did not know that school could go to that late in college if you're an athlete like that. So
mm,
that is definitely interesting. How do you balance that? I mean, it's probably difficult sometimes to have a
yeah.
class until 9 o'clock when you have practice and you're working out and doing all this work all day. So how do you kind of balance that?
I mean, there's no easy way to balance it really. You kind of just got to do it.
Right.
And I guess that can teach you a lot just about life, especially post basketball, post college, whatever you want to call it. You just got to do it. It's
Right.
not something that everybody wants to do. No one really wants to stay in class until 9 o'clock or have three classes after we've just practiced for 3 hours and lifted for an hour. But it's just one of those things you got to do. You're a student athlete at the end of the day. You signed up for both, so you got to respect both and put time into both. So.
Yep, that definitely makes a ton of sense. But as an athlete, I thought this was really cool. You guys, you and your team, the Stags, went to Costa Rica in the
Mm,
middle of August. You had a tournament there, 3 games. You won all three. You
yeah.
were incredible as a rebounder. So, explain to me and the audience what that experience was like.
It was amazing. I loved it down there. I think it flew by a little too quickly. I wish we could rewind a little bit,
Yeah,
but it was lovely. It's a lovely place. We played some really good games, um, and it was just good to be out there on the floor with my new teammates and learning and playing with them and also being able to showcase uh, what I can do on the floor, and kind of the role that I can have for this team. And it resulted in 3 wins, so we can't complain.
yeah. Obviously, you definitely cannot complain. But this is your senior season. This is the
Yeah.
last hurrah of your collegiate basketball career. So, what are your goals for this coming season at Fairfield?
First and foremost, to just be as successful as we can. I know everybody may have certain awards or something. I think my number one thing is just trying to win the MAC,
Yeah.
and get up there and secure a spot in the national tournament. That would be the biggest plus, the biggest takeaway from this year. Um, Individually, I would just like to play. I would like to be able to be out there so I can help my team win, so that I can be of value. I feel like when I don't play a whole lot, whilst I'm kicking and screaming for my teammates on the bench, and I'm always supportive. I feel like the more I play, the more impactful I can be, and the more you can get out of me. So, from an individual standpoint, just play a decent amount.
Yeah, it's been a really long time actually since the Stags made the NCAA tournament. So, if you were able to
Mm,
make it this year, that would be
it'd be
something
big
really
time.
special, especially in your only year in Fairfield. That'll definitely
Yeah, it would be big time. It would be nice.
yeah. But I think we are going to wrap up the show here. But I always ask this to every athlete that I do interview.
Uh-huh.
Depending on their sport. I have many, friends that want to be athletes when they're older. If you had to give one piece of advice to an aspiring athlete or basketball player, what would it be and why?
Ooh, I would just say it's cliche, but just never give up. I remember when I was young, 13, 14, 15, and all I dreamed about was coming to the US.
Really? Wow.
And I just never gave up. I never played any high level basketball back home. You would never, if you could ask anybody who knew me growing up, they would tell you would never have pictured me playing Division One basketball, let
Wow.
alone what God has me planned for the future. But
Right.
just never give up, never give up, never give up. It doesn't matter if you have no offers. It doesn't matter if you're not on a certain team. Just keep on going. Never give up.
Michael Jordan didn't make his varsity basketball team initially. So, I think that's a great lesson in every profession.
Exactly.
Just never give up and keep working hard.
Keep
Lou
working on it.
Bleechmore, thanks so much for coming on to
Of
the show
course.
today. We really do appreciate it, and we wish you good luck for the upcoming season.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for your time.
Of course, thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
That is going to be it today for the Cool Sports Network. We hope you guys all did enjoy. Alongside for this episode, Lou Bleechmore. As always, I am Chase Coburn, and we'll see you next time here on the Cool Sports Network.